YouTube is coming.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I call the August Guam Board of Accountancy meeting to order. Present are board members, Sean Phillips, Jenny Chu, myself, and participating remotely are board members Francis Quinto and Taling Taitano. And also present is Executive Director Dave Sanford. Before we begin, we'll just reconfirm that this meeting has been properly noticed, and I think in the materials,
August 14 and 19.
August 14 or August 19 in the Guam Daily Post. So it looks like it's properly noticed, so we can proceed. First item of the agenda is the approval of last meeting's minutes, which was actually in July 17. It was June that we didn't have, right?
Right, yeah, this last meeting covered the May and June.
May and June, okay. So please review the minutes.
Move to approve subject to correction.
Second.
Okay, so minutes to last month's meeting, the July meeting has been approved. And on to the next item on the agenda, which will be old business day.
Yeah. Well, we'll go through the accountancy and endowment fund update and the visiting professor program. So, as you can see, the fund as of, we look at the statement for July 31st, it was $6,063,000. But then as of October 19th, 3 weeks later, it had gone up to $6,138,000. So, you know, market's still going up and down. And who knows what it's going to do in the near future, but it's still kind of hanging up there in the stratosphere, waiting to go into outer space. But we'll see. But so far, we're still to the good, so we don't have an issue there. If we look at the July 31st ending statement, it shows that we have a year-to-date performance of 5.62%. Which is, you know, right about the 6% target that we have. So with it going up and down, it's been up to 7, back down to 4 or whatever. So 15%, 23 and 10% in 24. If we even do the 6% in 25, we're in good stead. So hanging in there in that regard. In there, towards the back, you'll find we've basically paid about 42,000 in fees year to date, and we made a $200,000 contribution this year. So for this fiscal year, the 42,000 in fees, and we haven't yet been hit for any of the visiting professor expenses. We did agree to fund the 2 visiting professors that were part of the MAC program this summer. There were 2 sessions taught by the 2 visiting professors. They actually did not come to Guam. They're located in Eastern Washington.
You're frozen again.
Okay.
But Taling, can you hear Dave when he speaks, and he's just frozen?
Are you hearing me or no?
Yeah, after you said Washington, it stopped for a while until just now.
So it's not just video.
Okay.
It's
So you
also...
couldn't hear me?
No.
Okay. Anyway, the 2 professors were out of somewhere in Washington, and they both agreed to teach a session in the MAC program for the summer. They did that remotely. So I think we committed to $5,000 for each of them for their summer session. So it's working out. And then from a fund standpoint, we're still on a realized capital gain of $1,044 or $1,400. So in that sense, we're breaking even on anything realized. Everything else is unrealized gains. But we're still doing well. I don't have any. Spring or next summer, I think, is what we're looking at. But the dean has been, very busy. Dean Jones has been very busy. She's managed to accomplish two things at this point. One is that, the entrance exam that was being given to the accounting students at the beginning of their junior year to determine whether they could stay in accounting or not, which we've been arguing against for the last 5 or 6 years with the UOG faculty about the efficacy of it, because in a lot of ways it's so old it hasn't really applied to current day for years. And we did do some, we had an ad hoc committee 2 years ago that did some interviews and other research, and basically discovered that it was a barrier to entry for all of our accounting students, and was really costing the kids a lot of money and frustration, same as us, and pretty much limiting the people that were going through the accounting program. The dean has managed. We had talked about replacing it with something else, but at this point, I think she found it more efficacy. The efficacy was just basically eliminated, and they did. So as of this summer, that testing program is eliminated. It does not apply anymore. So hopefully we'll see more people entering the accounting program and saving some money in doing so, and we'll produce more accountants in the future.
I'm curious how she accomplished that, because
I have no idea, and I didn't want to ask her.
we tried to do that. Oh, gosh, there's all kinds of politics and.
Well, I think there still is all kinds of politics, but we were kind of pursuing a replacement philosophy, and we found out that in order to replace it with something else, it would be another 2 to 3 year long process, because you have to go through the process of amending the catalog and getting the faculty people to sign off on it, and all this other bureaucratic process that they have to follow to establish it in the catalog so that people can be part of the curriculum. So I think she just decided that the best way to go was, at this point, was if we can't get a new one in place quickly, let's at least eliminate the old one, because it's the barrier.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't mean politics. There was a lot of bureaucracy involved to change it.
It is to some extent. Their university politics, let's put it
I think
they have their own set of politics.
I think when we tried to do something, it seemed like it wasn't in our place to tell them what to do.
Not as welcome, yeah, because we're not academics.
They need to make their own decision, not us coming in and saying you should do this.
We're not academics, so of course they can argue that, but and that's fine. But I'm just happy, and I think.
But we did have professors recommend a change, and they're academics.
But in their process, they refused to let the professors speak about why. They didn't want to hear why or wherefore. They just wanted to have a vote, and of course it was a 1-to-1 vote. So, and I think one of the other things that may have swayed the opinion to put it over the goal line maybe was the fact that there are now 3 accounting professors, full-time accounting professors, not just 2.
So you have a tiebreaker.
Kind of helps. I think that helped a little bit. So anyway, at this point, that issue has become moot because the test has been eliminated. So hopefully going forward,
You're frozen again.
Okay,
Now I hear you.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's happening on YouTube also, but
Yeah, I don't know. But the other thing that she's managed to accomplish at least was that we were advised it's supposed to happen, is that the University of Guam had reached an agreement with Prometric, and NASBA to take over the Guam Computer Test Center.
Yeah.
So that, it doesn't have to die a sudden death and go away. That means that University of Guam will take it over and run it through the Guam Research, the UOG Research Corporation. And they'll be responsible for it. They'll maintain the staff, and our local candidates will continue to be able to test locally. They won't have to fly off island to take the CPA exam. And I think they also have plans to hopefully bring in more Taiwanese and Korean candidates and things like that, because the international testing fee has gone up to something like $350 or $400, $500 per section.
Per section.
So if you want to test in Japan or Korea or, you know, anywhere else like that outside of the United States, you have to pay the $500 per section surcharge fee. That fee does not apply to Guam because we're considered a domestic location. So the test center charges a surcharge fee, but it's much less than that. So I think for the difference in taking 2 sections, which would be about $800, most of our Korean, Japanese, and Taiwanese candidates can fly to Guam, spend a day or 2 days taking the exam and another day on the beach and fly back home and have spent less money than they would just taking the 2 sections at home. So they're hoping that they can build a higher volume, and they've done the deal with Prometric, I think, to basically put them on a break-even basis to start with. So that was one of the bigger issues they had, was renegotiating the fees that Prometric was paying. So
Randy will still be there.
I believe so. I believe that Randy and there's one other staff person that there's going to stay basically on staff. So and Randy's also involved because he's got a lot of Korean connections involved in trying to build that connection with the Koreans too. Because Korea has a test center, but it's not as big as the one here. So obviously it can't hold all the volume of Korea, so they think they can attract more Korean candidates to come to Guam to take the test. So the test center here will downsize, but it will still exist, and it doesn't have to go away, and we don't have to end the schedule.
The same location, they just are able to.
Same
shrink the
location,
space.
but they're shrinking the space. And as far as we know, then everything will continue as normal at this point. So,
Would they still give those other non-CPA exam tests too?
oh yeah, they still do all of the.
They need to, otherwise they're not gonna make it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
without that, they don't have enough volume, so. But.
And the numbers kind of work out with the smaller space?
Well, with the renegotiation with Prometric, I think so, because Roseanne and who's the director of the UOG Research Corp, Michaelson, I forget. his
Yeah,
name,
Michael,
the manager there. So the 2 of them were negotiating with Prometric for what they needed to make it viable, and I think they got what they needed. The lawyers signed off on the contract, so they were supposed to sign the contract, I think, either last week or this week.
So.
How long is the contract for?
Sure, but I'm sure it's probably at least 3 to 5 years, if not
Hopefully.
longer.
I'm just trying to understand how this works now, since UOG's taking it over. Will it be seamless now when people call? Will they be calling UOG? Will they be
No,
calling
it's
NASBA?
just the same.
Everything's the same.
You call, they, in order to schedule and do everything, you call Prometric, or you
It's
deal with
Prometric, right? Okay.
It's always been Prometric.
Okay.
The NASBA call center was taking calls from candidates about exam applications and
Oh, okay,
notices.
okay. Nothing to do
schedule.
with necessarily the testing.
Nothing to
center.
do with the testing center
Okay.
from a Prometric standpoint,
Okay.
but from a NASBA standpoint, with notices to schedule and,
Okay.
you know, that kind of thing, yeah, so. And that, they still will call NASBA, they just won't be here, so. But otherwise, everybody just deals with Prometric just like they have.
Do you know how they transferred it organizationally? Was there a corporation here or so?
They're using the Guam Research Corporation.
So it's like a transfer of
to do it.
ownership
So
or
it'll
something.
it'll be, I think the contract. On the test center, and
Okay.
Prometric owns the servers and the equipment and all that stuff, so. And that
Okay.
continues, it's basically, apparently Prometric owns most of the equipment everywhere because of their security issues, so. So everything transfers to the UOG Research Corp, so it's not under the government auspices, it's under the Research Corp, which is totally separate, and they have a different, policies, et cetera, that you deal with is not civil service the way I understand
Okay,
it.
well, I'm glad they're able to take it over, right? That
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, so from the candidate's
That's my
point of view,
doubts.
even from the board's point of view, there's no difference.
Right, from
What
us,
we're
yeah, from
receiving,
the
what they're
candidate,
being charged is all the
exactly,
same.
exactly, yeah,
Well,
yeah. So
that really is
they'll get
seamless.
whatever we were getting, so, you know. But
So
we
instead-
were only getting like the $70 per candidate or something like that, so. But from this point of view, the test center, UOG Research Corp will get the total fee, because we were getting 70 and NASBA was getting 70, so I think they can either keep it the same and reduce it or keep it basically
Whatever it
the
is,
same.
we're just not gonna get this.
Yeah, so we don't get the 70, but they get all.
And that's all.
Yeah, it's okay with us, so, yeah, it's been amounting to less than $2,000 a month for the last 2 or 3 years.
That's 70
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah, not even 1,000 in some cases, and not even 1,000 a month.
Yeah, at one time there was a thought that we might have to subsidize this,
Exactly, yeah, we were.
Right, so
we were
so
worried
keeping it to
about that,
70 is,
so,
is
yeah,
fine,
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
only
yeah.
$2,000 a year.
Yeah, and that's what I made plain to Dr. Jones was that, we don't have to have a surcharge, need a surcharge, you guys can do whatever you want to with it. You know, they get all of it, which is to their advantage, because NASDAQ we're only getting the half, and we got the other half, but it hasn't been big enough to make any difference to us, in the last, well, since COVID. For COVID, we were getting nothing, so, But the fortunate thing was that before COVID, we reached the milestone of having enough volume of licensees and renewals that we could pay for ourselves, without needing the test center revenue, so. That's the fortunate thing for us, so we were ahead of that game. So we got ahead of that ball anyway. so.
are they gonna be actively marketing to these countries?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's part of what Randy is paying for, because he has contacts with the Koreans. Have a much broader appeal in terms of bringing candidates in. If we can ever get, if the geopolitics settles down to the point where China's not so persona non grata, and we can actually get flights back from China, then we can pick up we were half of the
Yeah.
test center volume we had was Chinese, mainland Chinese in Hong Kong. Up to like, 100 candidates a month, which was making pretty good revenue.
And solve
But-
Guam's tourism problems.
Yeah,
That's
so-
just,
exactly, yeah, it's a big part of it, yeah, so.
I know, we're very focused on the exam, but
Yeah, but without seats, people don't come, so without.
they can't, yeah, it's a lot of
Airline
work to
seats,
get here.
airplane seats, without that, and it takes a lot of work to get an airplane to wanna fly here, with 150 people on it. It's not a cheap proposition, so. Anyway, that's where we're at least we have a viable surviving test center for the moment. And our candidates don't have to go off island to take
Okay.
the exam.
Okay, good. So
Okay,
very positive.
yeah, that was very good news to hear.
For that 3 or 5 year period.
Absolutely, yeah, so we'll see.
Okay, so I think the next item on the agenda would be the applications for initial certification and licensure.
Yeah, we have,
I looked at it, there's no Guam,
not this time, but I think there's 70 something.
77 is a lot, yeah, so it's good, but that's
Yeah,
what.
well, there's more in the wings, believe me.
Yes.
We thought it would be slowing down, but it obviously is not. It's 77 this time. One of the things that's propping this up is when the states like New Hampshire say, you have to have a social security number. There's a lot of people who didn't, so they're all basically, they've been coming to converting to Guam, simply
Do
because
you know
of that.
why they would start to do that? What are they worried about?
I don't know.
Like, what do we not know?
The legislature just decided that, you know, they wanted to have everybody have a social security number. I don't know. You know, some of these boards, unlike us, they have a very
Hello. Hello.
can hear you.
Okay, yeah,
Can you hear?
you're still freezing for some reason.
I don't know. I can hear you.
Yeah, I turned off my video. I was hoping that it would stop freezing, but still.
I'm here. Yeah. It just goes in and out every so often.
Yeah.
What that would be. If we're solidly,
Audio seems.
we're solidly connected to the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you freeze, we can't hear you either.
Okay. Where did I leave off?
Hard to say.
What was the last thing you heard?
77 licensees. Move to
Okay.
approve.
Way back.
Second,
Meeting is properly convened.
Yeah, the question was, why would New Hampshire enact a security
Right.
Oh,
requirement?
yeah.
The social
We
security
don't
numbers.
know.
I heard that. Yeah.
So what I was saying is the boards change composition all the time and they have non-CPA or they have non-professional members, you know, like public members that, so the Lord only knows why they do what they do in the States. They're not as homogeneous as we are here, even though we are more ethnically diversified than any of them. We're still homogeneous in thought, I think. So, you know, but
I don't know
yeah,
if
a
that's
lot of-
scary or not.
it is sometimes when you think about it, but you know, a lot of the new ones we're getting are from New Hampshire because there were a lot of international licensees there from the past. And now they have to have social security number, which they don't have and they can't get, so they're switching to us to switching their licensing to us. Anyway,
So I
don't think we have-
moved and Francis seconded approval.
Okay, so
Okay,
licenses and certifications are approved.
yeah,
Move on to the request for extension.
that gets us to the 77 and there are more in the wings.
Today there's a request for
Yeah, let me get there. I have a problem turning.
It's been 5 years.
We were saying this guy, the only reason we brought it to the board was because, he's asked us about 6 times to bring it to the board. But, I wanted to just make sure that we all understand the situation and we kind of feel for the guy, but it's, we felt like the board should decide on this, but, if we start out, he asked in January of 2024 to reinstate him and extend his credit for BEC and Reg. Was he had COVID, his parents were hospitalized, and then the parents got COVID or whatever, they were all sick, so we extended him to June 25, which gave him basically 18 months. And then he comes back in June 25 and says he's asking for another extension because he's got COVID again and chronic back pain, and his mother's
Hello? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, he's the primary caretaker for his mother, and he's still having issues, and he has COVID, and he asked for extension, and of course we denied it because he's already had 18 months, and he came back again and again. So we figured let's take a look at what's really going on. But if you look at his schedule, i.e. the number of times he's taken the exam since 2019. I mean, the guy is actually supporting us.
These are dates of actual tests.
These are the tests he's actually taken, yes. And he got there with Reg, he got there with BEC, and he's almost gotten there with audit 3 or 4 times, but
22.
Yeah, so when you look at it, I mean, my first line of thought was, well, we gave him 18 months. Did he take the test? And yeah, he did. He took it 6 more times. So,
27 times.
so I mean, it's not like he's not trying, so, and I since, all of the other, jurisdictions, they've all, since the CPA evolution thing and everything went from, well, not 18 months, 24 months, now it's 30 months. So we figured, well, yeah, we could extend him through February of 26, I guess. And that should get him his 30 months, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's asking for credit for tests he took
He meets the 30 months.
Yeah.
2020.
32.
Yeah.
His FAR scores are dropping.
So, yeah, well,
That's not trending
Yeah.
now.
yeah, and I think that's, like he says here, because his mom fell and he has all these other problems, so.
He's down at 51.
But he's determined, the guy's determined, I mean, you gotta give him credit for. So I'm thinking, we should probably go ahead and give him his credit at least through, I think he asked for February 26th.
Oh, that's not too.
Which at this point is only another 8 months,
Yeah.
so, and he still has to pass 2 other parts, so.
I mean, I don't see, I mean, that's.
But I wanted the board to understand what we're doing here. We would normally say, hey, you had 18 months, give it a rest, but. That and the fact that, of course, we always want to encourage people to be CPAs, so. I'm recommending that we go ahead and give him through February 26th and we'll see how he goes,
And this is the second, this would be the second
It's
extension.
the second extension, yeah.
Yeah,
That'll extend him to basically the 32 months.
that definitely would be.
We'd already agreed to go to the 30 months anyway, so.
Yeah, that would give them the 30 months. So I agree. Let's go ahead and do that. If that's the 30 months.
Yeah.
But that'll give them 30 months.
For 32 months.
32
That's what
months.
32.
32,
Give me an
Okay,
extra 2
32.
months.
That's still okay.
I think. Yeah, I'm inclined to give him what he's requesting and then he either makes it or he doesn't, but that
So he
gives,
can take 8 more times.
yeah, at least.
Yeah. And then after that, we can always tell them, like that said, you've had the 30, more than 30 months.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then we have something to fall back on and say, look,
Yeah.
30 months, that's it.
yeah. So if the
Okay.
board's okay with it, I'm okay with it. We don't need an approval. I just wanted the board to understand what's going on and you know, see if you guys acquiesce or not, so. You know, we don't normally, we're normally rather sticky about giving extensions unless you've got a real reason for it, like you said, like getting sick and, you know, breaking your leg. One lady being pregnant, stuff like that, that's, you know. She registered for her exams and found out 3 weeks later that she was pregnant with a very, okay. Anyway.
Okay.
We'll go
Okay,
ahead
so
and
there's
give
no
it-
issues. We
Yes,
just
you can-
proceed
you
with
can
that.
do it.
Okay.
And then we go through to the candidate care report. It's not a big deal. It seems to be getting smaller all the time. And you can still see that the majority of the issues are between candidate error, the environment and the prometric scheduling and site issues, which mostly is also environmental type stuff. So we don't have any real issues there. The one tangible item for the quarter was that the NASBA staff tested the new mobile application where candidates can apply for the exam, check their app status and access their notice to schedule. So they're testing it, and they hope to be launching it pretty soon. And once they get that off the ground, it'll be a lot easier for candidates to apply and get scheduled, that kind of thing. So NASBA's investing probably 3 or 4 million now into the mobile app. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, there's no questions about that. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we go to the quarterly communications. I'm gonna cover basically the July meeting, and then everything after that is more or less a rehashing, because the July meeting is kind of the summary of what was before, so. But basically, if you're looking from the July 25th meeting, Dan Dustin, the CEO, updated the NASBA's leadership development and professional excellence training. They have a NASBA culture champion team. The continued diagnostic project was the guy who's interviewing everybody, the various boards and stuff. And then Wendy went on a Washington DC trip where she and the other NASBA, they met with all the federal regulators. So they're meeting with like Department of Labor and all of those IRS and those people. Then Bill Emmer was an operational update where he did an overview of NASBA's compliance services through their operational dashboard. So they're trying to get a little more savvy with how they manage things now that Bill is there. So the interesting thing, consolidated operating.
Hello?
You still here? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm just talking too fast or you're listening too slow.
Dave, you're not talking too fast.
I don't think I ever talk too fast.
No.
Well, can't help that. The operating excess is projected to be 4.1 million, and investment income expected to be 4.7 million. So if net assets are projected to increase by 8.8 million, that's why I told the guy that interviewed me that I don't see why NASBA can stop charging registration fees for their meetings. Because if they didn't charge registration fees for their meetings, they'd probably spend about $600,000 a year more on the meeting costs. But they're getting 4 million in investment income and 4 million excess revenues. What's the deal here? AICPA does not charge. They cover the airfare and the hotel for all of the council meetings. And they have just as many people at a council meeting, maybe more, that NASBA has at any one of their meetings. I don't know why we have to pay a $895 registration fee to go to a NASBA meeting.
I know, net assets are projected to increase by 8.8 million.
Yeah, so what's another 600,000 in the meeting budget? you
Where are they
know,
getting their money?
For the boards that they
Wow.
reportedly
That's
represent.
the increase.
And
Yeah,
that's,
the increase.
that's the increase on top of the fact that we all pay dues and we still have to pay the $895 registration fee. So, anyway, that's just my thought. As, who is it? One of the comedians always says, that's just my opinion, I could be wrong. Anyway, if we move on and approve, the board approved for consideration the proposed bylaw changes to the chair section. Proposed changes to the standards for continuing professional education. They voted to post the changes pending approval by AICPA for comment in an upcoming 90-day exposure draft. So we'll probably hear about that at the annual meeting also. I'm not sure exactly what they're changing there, but I think they're reducing the requirement for CPE or the requirement for types of CPE or stuff like that. So we'll see. One of the things that was very apparent in Florida with the people who were trying to actually do away with licensing was that they also wanted to do away with CPE. They said, wait, that's just education. Anybody can do what they want. You know, why do you have to require that? That was part of their move to do away with licensing completely for CPAs and everybody except doctors and lawyers, of course. You know, the lawyers are the ones proposing the thing in the first place. So anyway, I think that may be part of what they're talking about with the CPE changes. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll hear about it soon. Then the yes, I think it's a meeting they had in one was this other meeting was in May. They had a virtual meeting in May. And this was called to decide whether they want to approve the proposed changes recommended by the joint NASBA AICPA Uniform Accountancy Act Committee. This is the language changes they made to the UAA about the mobility language and stuff. They're talking about they had one section 23A1, which is relative to the substantial equivalency section. This basically about mobility and substantial equivalency. And they had an in-depth discussion of the use of the term active, and they provided a summary of comments, and they decided they wanted to remove the term active. So we'll hear about that, I'm sure, in these upcoming changes also. I haven't heard anything other than that about the changes they made. We talked at the regional meeting about some of it, but it's all relative to trying to catch up with the law changes that the jurisdictions were making relative to you know, requirements for licensure in the 150 versus less than 150 and the 2 years experience, bachelor's in 2 years, that kind of thing. So that was this active thing was relative to substantial equivalency and mobility from the perspective of the changes with the license.
They're referring to like an active license in another jurisdiction.
Yeah, the one we were talking about, yeah, so we'll see what they come. They covered topics like artificial intelligence, NASBA's information technology projects, generational differences in the workplace. And NASBA's continued focus on their workforce, update on the current deregulation legislation in Florida that fortunately died, but will probably be raised again as soon as they have a new session. And then they had, three people, involved with NASBA from Michigan, Alabama, and New Mexico that were appointed to the AICPA Auditing Standards Board. And then another person from Florida appointed to the AICPA PEAK, the Professional Ethics Executive Committee. And then two of the executive directors from Ohio and Oregon were appointed to the AICPA Board of Examiners State Board Committee. So, and even though NASBA does not have a designated seat on the AICPA Board of Examiners, they did recommend and receive appointments for the reps from Delaware and Nebraska to one to the Reg and TCP section, one to the audit section, and one from Ohio to the ISP section, ISC section, actually. So we have people involved with NASBA from directors, boards, and executive directors sitting on these AICPA committees, the exam committees now, which is a plus. And then Dustin reported that 41 staff managers and supervisors took part in the leadership development program, and also that NASBA finalized the work policy that is transitioning employees back into the office in early May. I think they require them to be in the office now 2 days a week.
Only two?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, then Bill Emmer again, updated on the continuing progress of the processing time for CPACE jurisdictions, which is we're one of. How that learning can be applied to the NASBA's International Evaluation Services within the registry. And the status of the licensing system project is they're trying to speed things up. Get a little more efficiency. And then along with Bonner on the ALD, the Accountancy Licensing Database, they're trying to rewrite some of the ALD so that it's more efficient also. We currently upload a file once a month after the board meeting.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, maybe it's just my electric personality that keeps pushing the thing in and out. So,
Maybe.
yeah, so, and then they talked about the CPA mobile app that they're set for launch in early September, so, and they have a licensing system work group that they're still talking about rewriting NASBA's licensing system, and NASBA's thinking that it should offer a licensing system to all the jurisdictions, so we don't have to go get our own, so. But I'm not waiting for that, so. And then they talked about some of the other issues with the exams, this is candidate volumes, the whole pipeline thing, all that good stuff. Wendy Garvin talked about attending her American Professional Accounting Certification Providers Association, which consists of leading exam review course providers along with NASBA Risk and Compliance Associate Director Erica Smith. And then Emmer attended and gave presentation on behalf of NASBA on the activity with the Future Accountant Sponsoring Organization Group affiliated with the American Accounting Association. So they're continuing to make NASBA's presence more known in all these other accounting organizations and bodies. Wendy participated in the roundtable discussion by the International Ethics Standards Boards for Accountants, the IESBA. And then NASBA officials met in Nashville with Abatus, the Japan guys that usually come to meet with us once a year. They send a lot of their Japanese candidates, they send a lot of them to Guam for licensing. So they do also the review course provider in Japan. And Dan had a report about his interaction with the Chartered Accountants of Ireland, which really hasn't gone far since. Okay. The recent state board outreach with Kent Abzek, he's been reaching out to the state boards in the states, primarily focused on the current UAA exposure draft stuff, so. Discussions involving legislative activity with all the law changes that were going on. John Johnson too is the same thing, and John has a heavy plate this year because he's got 183 bills that were filed that have a direct impact on the profession. So he monitors all these things, so. And then the Center for Public Trust said that now 4,321 students are currently enrolled in the leadership certification program for the year. And they have the winners of the Ethics in Action video competition. And then they had the Student Leadership Conference with the Eastern Regional meeting this year where they had student attendees. Tom Kenny reported on it. Efforts for his 34 campaigns specifically on behalf of the Board of Accountants. Relative to the exam, the applications, etc., gets out pretty fast nowadays. So they're still talking about the topics to be discussed in the future. The focus with the joint UAA committee, alternative practice structures, private equity, and collaborative efforts with state boards and external stakeholders. That's pretty much it. So the rest of it, you guys can just look through. There's nothing really. There's any more defining than what we just covered. We can go through all the way to the.
You know, if Guam sends anyone to the Student Leadership Conference?
I know that the CPT chapter at UOG has usually sends 2 people every year to the meeting that the CPT sponsors. They either have it in conjunction with the Eastern or Western regional meeting. So I know there's 2 that go to that every year. I'm not sure about the separate leadership, if it's a separate conference or not. But the 2 from Guam that actually go to the meeting that's held in conjunction with the NASBA regional, the cost for that is generally covered by the CPT. The Center for the Public Trust covers the cost for 2 people to go.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. I know that they're going to that separate leadership conference.
Well, it says in conjunction, so maybe it's
Yeah.
held at the same time.
I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking so, but I'm not sure. Okay. I can find out the, next we have the exam, performance on the. The Reg exam, so we did okay, from a Guam standpoint. For Reg, they got up to 75 average score, and then the TCP was 81. So there's been some argument about whether that's too easy, but actually it's just that the section is the what it consists of today is a lot more well. I guess the candidates are more well versed in now. They took out some of the more esoteric stuff that really didn't apply to a lot of things. But then when you look at our candidates, overall we had a 54% pass rate. So with the average score and the number of candidates, we're hanging in there. In the middle of the page here, you can see under total candidates, our 2024 Q1 and Q2 compared to 2025 Q1, Q2, we're up by 50%. So even though nationwide, they say that the candidate base is declining, we still continue to have more. I'm not sure how that works, but, whatever's happening, we still wind up with an increasing candidate, base. If we flip over a couple more pages, we get to the first time, of Guam, first time candidates for Guam. So our first time candidates, we had 1,342 and the pass rate was 59%, which is even better. And our average score was 72.9, which was a little better than the overall. And again, if you look at this, most of our candidates are out of state or international. They're not from Guam. So, and they're still hanging in there. And interestingly, the international candidates, which was 1,219, had a 60% pass rate and a 73.2 average score, which was better than the overall score for us and for nationwide. And again, if you look down the bottom left corner, our enrolled other is 60% of our total candidates. So I don't think anybody can argue that you actually have to. Argument doesn't hold water. When you look at 60% of ours haven't completed, and we're still hanging in there with our average pass rates and our average scores. So if you flip over a couple more pages on the overall jurisdiction, which is in the entire nation, 25 Q2, they had an overall 64% pass rate on first timers, 63 for Riz, so a little higher. Average score was up to 74. That was 27,000 candidates. But out of 39 thousand total candidates, but 606,000 of them are international, and they had an average score of 72.9, which is right in there with ours, which is, ours is mostly international anyway. And their Q24 to 25, Q1 plus Q2, they were up 36%, but we were up 50%. So I don't know how to explain that either. So that means they're declining somewhere other than international, I guess. And then if you flip them over another page, you find that they, of course, had a in-state pass rate of 63%, with an average score or 74% for their total first-time candidates, with an average score of 74. But their international candidates had a 61% pass rate with a 74 score, so basically in line with ours. Excuse me. And their enrolled other is only 22%, so ours is 3 times larger than theirs. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the exam. Excuse me. If you flip over to the overall stats by jurisdiction, this page.
Okay.
The one that just lists all of the states, all the jurisdictions. You'll find that I think we came in at number 4 this time.
In terms of number?
The only one ahead of us was California, New York, and Texas, I think. Yeah, so we were even ahead of Washington and Illinois this time. So we usually come in at number 5, but we came in at number 4. Washington and Illinois were about 150 to 100. I stayed more or less. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but considering that our international is 80% of our candidates compared to everybody else, where it's overall nationwide is 20%. So
Yeah.
but I mean, when you look at when you look at California, New York and Texas, they're obviously gonna be more than us because of the domestic side. The only ones I would argue that would get close to us in international might be Illinois or Washington. But I still think they're behind us if we were just looking at international candidates. So overall,
It looks like international candidates is 6,600.
yeah, they had 6,600 out of 39,000. You know,
So we're 2,000,
Uh,
2,000.
yeah, so we're over a third of the total international candidates just for us. So
Yeah.
I think we're way ahead of all the other jurisdictions. But if you look at like, Guam versus California, Guam had 1,900 candidates, 2,500 sections. Our average pass rate was 54% and our average score was 72.1. California was 52.2 pass rate and 71.5 average score. Same with New York. New York was a 51.7 pass rate and 71.8 average score. And overall, 9,000 candidates, 54.9 pass rate, 72.6 score, and we had 54.3 and 72.1. So I don't think anybody can argue that we're not doing as well as or better than any other jurisdiction in terms of performance. Texas always has a higher pass rate and a higher average score because Texas has only a 90-day or 3-month notice to schedule. So you have to be ready to take the exam when you schedule it. And they also require you to have completed all your education before you take the exam. And they have they're pretty strict about their requirements, so.
Well, it looks like the international pass rate is higher than the domestic.
In some cases it is, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at overall,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, so.
well,
Candidates, most of them are already have a degree of something and then they go to accounting, so. There are, a lot of them are already on a quote, second career level basis.
The Guam candidates that pass, automatically apply as, Guam licensees.
Licensees?
that always-
Yes and no. Some transfer out. But most of our candidates do come to Guam for licensing. And what we find is that we'll get, they come to us for licensing, especially for their initial license, because we issue them the inactive license, right? And then they'll spend 2 or 3 or 4 years working for somebody and get their experience to become either a test or non-test license. And wherever they are, they may be in the States or somewhere else, and they'll apply to transfer their existing license to the other place wherever they're resident, you know, so. But it's usually 3 or 4
So the
years
initial
after.
one, well,
The
usually
initial one,
wherever
they usually come to
choose
us for,
test.
yeah. Yeah, and then we get, my God, I guess we get at least maybe 2 or 3 a week, or more, sometimes of. Candidates passing the exam in other jurisdictions and coming to us for licensure.
Because of that social security.
Things like that, yeah, exactly. So residency or social security, yeah, so. We always seem to have more coming in than we have going out, so, yeah.
But do we accept all of them? What if they don't meet some of our requirements, like?
We've never really had anybody, well, we've had a few over the years that didn't actually fulfill the requirements, but typically we'll get people that apply. And then they'll say, do I meet the requirements to sit for the exam? Well, yes, you do. You can under our pre-education
Okay.
thing. And then what do I need to complete? And they'll take courses online or whatever to
Okay.
complete what they need, you know, so. We've never really had anybody that we outright said, no, you don't qualify to sit, except for the ones that come and say, well, I have a chartered accountant, or I have this internal audit thing, or I have an ACCA
Okay.
stuff, and we don't accept any of that. So, you know, we tell them, fine, but you gotta go get actual education on a transcript from an actual institution, You know, so those kind we deny.
So. I guess the people that are here now that, you know, Guam don't meet the educational requirements, Can we just-
The 150.
the 150, can we just tell them to go?
We don't allow them to just say, hey, I wanna participate, and then, you know.
But not until we formally adopt that new change, right? If we adopt those new
That
changes.
pathway.
a
Right, yeah,
pathway,
we have to change that. in
Yeah,
order
okay,
to do
so as
that.
of today, it's not adopted, so they have to
Yeah.
go apply for that pre-education.
Yeah, to do the 150.
But when it does change,
Yeah.
it's possible for them to.
We'll be able to accept them as they
Accept them,
are.
okay.
And how far away from that?
Yeah. Well, the legislature's still in session, so, well. We can get the thing completely, if I can get it completely rewritten within the next month or so, we could probably get it done early next year.
Okay,
That'd be good, right?
yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get much out of the legislature after the budget bill, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I'll tell you why, I'll explain why.
But they're still working on finalizing the language in the UAA, right? Or-
Yeah, they're working on that, and then I'm still rewriting the
So we're gonna
whole,
wait
I'm
until
rewriting the entire rules
Yeah,
because of all the changes we've
Yeah,
got.
okay.
Every other month they come up with something new to change.
but we'll
Yeah.
essentially adopt the UAA language.
For the most part, we do.
Yeah,
There's only a couple of things that I rewrite that applies to us, like requiring the attest and not allowing firm mobility and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always change that. Yeah, so. Okay, any questions before we go to financial?
Nope.
Okay, if we look at, the financial statement first, as of July 31st, we hit 814,000 in revenues. Even exceeding what I thought we would, because it looks like we're gonna hit, we have potentially could hit 900 again, by the end of the year. We got 2 more months to go. But our exam application fees, are a heck of a lot higher than I thought they would be. Considering all of the issues with the score delays and all the things that happened. And that's liable to go over the 3, it could get close to the 300 mark. And then of course, the test center, you can see that we got 13,000 in revenues, you know. Over the past basically 10 months, so it's like 1,300 a month, so it's a good thing that UOG's taking it over.
that's the 79.
Hello? Hear
hello?
you now. I hear you. Sorry.
Okay, okay. Wow, I think we might have been on generator repair or something, yeah, okay. So if you look at the certification fees, that's our applicants, new licensees, and we beat budget because we got 2 more months to go. And I understand we probably have at least another 100 or so over those 2 months. We'll probably have another 100 or so over those 2 months, to add. So we'll have, another, good bump in that. And the renewals, to date, we've met last year, and which is also again over budget, which I was kind of surprised by, because when you think of all the things going on and how the economy's been going down, you figure some people are gonna drop out, but apparently our renewals just keep hanging in there. And we even had a couple of new firms get licensed. And then, of course, the penalties, we never budget, so. But it's basically averaging the 40 to 50,000 a year, so. Penalties, miscellaneous fees and interest, but interest is less than $1,000 out of that. Because the banks don't pay much in your checking account. Well, we hit the 814 and we have potential to be at 900 by the end of the year. And then our admin services contract, we're on target, hanging in there. That's not a problem. The copier service is not a problem. The office space is standard. Supplies is about what we imagined it would be. Small equipment, was just replacing one of the servers we had that kind of started going bad. And the bank charges and postage, is less, because we've, well, we ran out of the postage meter thing, so we've gone to, using FedEx, and we charge, everybody for FedEx, and we discovered that, you know, in the past, we weren't charging enough to cover the FedEx costs, completely, so we did start doing that as of, last year.
So it's basically being reimbursed
So
right now. that's
basically,
why.
it's a wash.
Yeah,
And more candidates are going to FedEx or renewals because they want theirs. It just takes forever and most of them get so frustrated. They're like, I'll pay the FedEx just to here FedEx it to me. So we do that. And then, because the postage meter went on the blink and stuff, of course, we were getting more FedEx because people were saying, okay, let's do that. But it's much easier for us to manage what we do mail, so, I think in that sense, we're getting a little better handle on it, but, because of the heavy volume through the renewals, most of them have gone to using FedEx. I mean, so it's just on a reimbursement basis, so we have saved a good bit in postage. And then the training, the notices, compliance, that's mostly the advertising and then the 200,000 we contributed, so. We still have a 266,000 excess. And I would say we have a 699,000 appropriation. And we're at 547,000, so if we added another 60 to 80,000 in expenses over the next 2 months, which it's probably gonna be around 60, that'd put us at 6, so. We're right close to being able, we could potentially make another contribution to the endowment fund of 100,000, or we could wait until the next fiscal year kicks in and put in maybe 300,000 or so. If you look on the next page, which kind of shows you what happened application wise, in terms of applicants for 2025. Our applicants for 2025 are basically right there with 2024. That's the two bottom lines, the two purplish looking bottom lines, where the 226 and 248. So it's basically holding steady, but because of the change in the way NASMA handles applications, where you apply to get qualified for the exam, which is a higher revenue, and then you pay for each individual section separately. Because of that, the overall revenues are still a little higher than last year, even though if you look at the lines on the top, the blue line is our 25 sections. And 250 or so sections, but we still maintained our revenues. So that's because you're now paying for each individual section versus where you used to pay with a $100 fee and you could take as many as you wanted. Of course, at that time, there were only 4 sections. Now there's 7 sections. So that's the reason they made the change. So we're hanging in there and I don't see it decreasing. So with our projection for next year, I'm thinking that we can either make a contribution this year and be on the borderline with our appropriation total, or we can wait until the next fiscal year kicks in and make a higher contribution overall. Any questions on that? We can go to the, what I call the SCA, Service Contract Act renewal. Our existing contract at this point, was a 3-year contract and it, terminates as of, September 30th, this year. And the contract calls for 2 1-year renewal periods. And so the first one would start this October. So what I've done is looked at the, of course, we can only change the wage determination when we make a change to the contract, we renew it, which we're doing. So, if you flip back about 4 pages, you'll see the worksheet that I have for, changing the new wage renewals. So everybody's classified, so you have the executive director, then you have, the exam manager, licensing manager, the board secretary, and then a general clerk, which we don't have right now. We're in the process of trying to look for one, but, in the meantime, I've been paying the overtime, for the ladies to keep up with the licensing and stuff, so. And, interestingly, the overtime is coming out to be about the cost of the clerk. So, but this is the new rates, as of, the latest revision to the wage determination, which was done back in July. So it's the same wage determination. It just keeps getting revised every year or so. But, this is the first time in 3 years that, it's been revised. So this would be the first time in 3 years that the ladies get a raise, the staff gets a raise. So,
Why are there some decreases?
well, clerk, but that's why there's a decrease there. So the accounting clerk went down to the general clerk 2, and Beth became a secretary 1, which is less than Arlene's. And then,
So they're
Jessica-
actually, because of
Yeah.
the change of function, they are actually getting increases.
yeah, so
Yeah.
overall, the increase for the staff, between the 3 ladies is roughly, it's either it's between 10 and 11% for the 3 of them, which covers the past 3 years. So average is about 3.5%, 4% a year, 3% a year, something like that. And then I realized that I hadn't changed the annual wage rate for the executive director since 2004, so. So I looked up the, US Department of Labor, wage, analysis, their occupational employment summary for 2024. And out of 5,700 and some odd managerial jobs, the 75th percentile was the 98,550. So I used that as the, and then I looked at a bunch of staffing patterns through Guam. The staffing patterns for all the different agencies that some that were close to us, like, the contractors license board and things like that, and found out that, this rate basically is equal to or less than almost all the other, executive director rates. Of course, some of the agencies are bigger, but some are smaller, and you take some like, the contractor license board. Their administrative staff, they have 5 positions on their administrative staff. And their rates are roughly equivalent to what we have here, but their benefit, percent is 53.2%. So if they have $100,000 executive director, they pay $53,200 in benefits. That's just, it's just insane. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And then there's other agencies like, Guam Solid Waste, where you have a director that's making, 140,000 and his benefits are still 40, 50,000. You know, it's upward of 40%, 50%. And they have a controller that's making 165,000, which kind of begs the issue, so. You wonder why we have a hard time hiring accountants. Can't afford any of them, so. Anyway, this my recommendations, and it amounts to an overall 4.8% increase over the current monthly rate that we're paying, because of course. I have the 5% GRT and the 12% overhead, so. For handling all the stuff we do. This includes of course, the wage rate, but then the biggest increase actually is in the benefits rate. The $5.55 per hour. It was formerly $4.60.
So that's what that.
That's almost $1 an hour. It's almost $1. It's a 95 cents an hour raise. And that's mandated by the wage determination.
So that's just an add-on to their base.
Right, so the wage determination gives you these base rates. And then they mandate that, the benefits, you're required to pay health and welfare benefits. And they can either pay it at an hourly rate, which is mandated by the wage determination, or you can calculate the equivalency and create like a cafeteria plan.
Okay,
But then you have to be sure that you spend at least that. Most of them just want to do their own thing because, you know, they're married and whatever.
Yeah, it'll take.
So what we did was say, I'm gonna pay you the hourly rate. And if you want our benefits, you can just buy them at cost, our cost, so, you know, so some do, some don't.
oh, so for example, they would just pay for in full the premiums.
Yeah,
For the health
yeah,
insurance.
because
Okay.
we're paying you the benefit
Okay.
amount, and then you
Okay.
decide what you want, and then some do, some don't, you know, cause like Arlene, she was covered under Guam because she retired from them all, she didn't even need coverage, so. You know. So it's up to them what they do, so.
Okay,
But that's the bigger part of the increase, then of course you've got the, you know, the FICA taxes and the. You know, workman's comp, and that's basically it. But it amounts to an overall 4.8% increase in the monthly rate, over what it exists today. Okay, so I thought that was reasonable for a 3-year, period. Overall, the ladies are still getting, roughly a 10 to 11. So that's okay, I think we need a motion to approve that because it's amending the contract. Then we
okay,
could.
so for which one, where,
Yeah,
okay,
So moved.
just for.
moved by,
Yeah.
Second,
motion made by Tal, second by Francis.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're approving,
The supplemental agreement
supplemental
number
agreement.
1, yes,
okay,
yeah, which I got the stuff in here, so. So we can, get it signed off and we can submit it.
Okay,
And we can submit it.
do we need to
tomorrow.
approve the extension? No, that's,
No, it's all built in.
It's all
there.
built in,
Just a
right.
standard, it's a
Okay.
standard 1-year thing, based
that's
on.
already been approved, it's just, you're just
Yeah.
exercising the option. Okay.
Right, through the original contract. So, but we have to put this paperwork together and submit it to the AG and the governor's office for their signature.
Okay. Am I the only certifying officer or can
Yeah,
it be another?
you're it. It's all your fault.
No, I was wondering, because my name is there twice, so maybe it'd be good if there's someone else's name there.
No, they consider the chair as the certified officer. Unless you wanna step down.
Maybe, yeah, that sounds good.
Don't worry, we got enough money.
Dave,
Make
did
sure
did we figure out how we were gonna do that licensing thing?
We left off with, right before you went on your trip, I was wondering if we could get it done through the GSA. And I wasn't sure, you said you were gonna ask your lawyer something, and then I forgot what it was, and then, I didn't, follow up with you since you've been back. We need to look at that.
I think I thought she said that we still needed to try to get quotes.
Yeah, and I was thinking that I can put out a request for interest or something like that,
Right,
or,
right.
or, yeah, or just put something out, but then, I was, this goes to covering the issue with the budget. So I looked at the budget bill, for, FY 26 that, of course, they're debating now in the legislature. Last week, I guess I looked at it and I discovered that they had us in the special revenues listing, the Board of Accountancy Fund. And they listed us, but of course they listed us with the last year's revenues, which is the 699. But then when I looked in the appropriations section where they list all the, under the governor's office, the executive branch, for all the appropriations for all the individual agencies, especially where they list all of the special revenue fund.
Hello?
Can you
Hello?
hear me now?
Yeah. I heard you
Okay.
after, you said you were gonna check the special revenue funds listed.
Right, so we were listed under special revenues, with the current year, the 699
Mm-hmm.
as revenues.
In the budget bill.
But there was no appropriation. And I searched the entire budget bill and we had no appropriation for our operations. So I put together an email, this was last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, to Chris Duenas, Senator Duenas, who's in charge of, the budget and, whatever they call it, the Ways and Means.
Yeah.
Yeah, and emailed it to his office with our approved budget by the board, which was for FY 26, which is like 800 and some odd thousand. And and the copies of the pages of the budget bill where we should be listed, but we're not. And explained to him, and so then I didn't hear anything. So this past week, I was talking to Tony about it, my wife. And of course, she has contacts. And I said, wow, we were looking at, she was watching the legislature debate the budget. And I said, well, it's crazy because we're not listed. There's no appropriation whatsoever for the Board of Accountancy. We're just like skipped. I find the appeals board and then I find the contractor licensing board, and usually we're right after that, and we're just not there. It's as if they just skipped us. So she said, well, let me call. And I said, well, I don't want to raise a lot of cane, And she said, well, let me see what's going on. So we called Chris Duenas, and he had gone into recess. This was 2 or 3 days ago. And he said, wow, I don't know anything about that. I didn't see your budget or anything. I said, well, we sent it to your office and, the legislature. He said, but I guess the issue is that we are supposedly in the section, the governor's office produces the bill that they submit, which is the one we were reading from. And we were left out of that original presentation. So when they picked that up and put it in the budget bill, we're just not there. We don't know how it got left out.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I heard, and we got left out.
Yeah. So I talked to Tony about it and she said, well, I'm just gonna text all my contacts and ask them to make sure they put the stuff in there. And so we put together a text to Chris Duenas with all the details. And Tony had called, I forget who she called, but whoever it was sitting right beside Steven Guerrero, the guy who's in charge of the whole thing. So
Yeah.
so when she said, I need to talk, she said, well, he's sitting right here, so talk to him. So we talked to Steve and told him what the deal was, and we sent Chris all the information. And she texted it to all of her contacts. So apparently they got it read into the record and supposedly amended in. And we found that there's a section 12 way back in the back of like chapter 3 that's called funding sources. And in that chapter, they list all the individual agencies, and it basically says any agency with special revenue funds is allowed to spend up to their level of collected funds, something to
wow.
that effect.
Okay,
So that will, and any previous fund balance, so that essentially gives us the go-ahead to spend whatever we have.
Without actually being listed.
Yeah,
as a-
we don't have to actually have an appropriation for it. It's
Okay.
considered a continuing thing, so
Is the,
that gives us the authority.
are the
So-
appeals board in the same situation? Do they collect more than their expenses?
No, they always take GovWell money, or so do the contractors.
Maybe that's why they
license
had to be appropriated, because they need more.
Yeah, so,
subsidies.
yeah, there's boards that, there's, I shouldn't say boards, agencies that do and agencies that don't. Most of the agencies that just use their special revenue funds are appropriated anyway, like we always were. I think they just, somebody just inadvertently skipped over us and left us out of the appropriation page.
Okay, is it because we don't require funds?
That's what we're wondering.
I know, I think it's just because somebody, it's just an oversight.
Because they don't know about
I
accounting.
think they just, we're going down the line and copying the thing from last
Like
year.
we're reading too much into
Yeah,
it, like.
they're just
what
going
is
down the line.
catch-
I mean, because it's just copied from
But
last year's
because there's a
budget, right?
catch off for
Yeah.
the ones that
Okay.
break
Yeah,
even.
but this is the first time that I've seen the.
hello.
Additional revenue fund can spend up to the revenues they collect, because we don't use any government money, so.
Okay.
So they just
Maybe
made
like
that.
the AI proofreader would be that.
Yeah, probably, so, it could be, so.
So they don't have a total for budgeted expenditures
Yeah,
They
because
two
do,
numbers.
they
we were
do,
left out.
they do,
To the
but
budget
somehow
bill.
we were left out. I mean, I checked the revenue side, and
Yeah.
that was okay, but the expenditure side, we're just not there. So,
Yeah,
well, I have no
Oh, so we're
idea.
in the revenues, we're not in the expenses.
Yeah, so why list,
Yeah.
why listed in the revenue and not
are they
in spend?
misstating the
Yeah.
projected,
I have
If you're
no
gonna,
idea.
if you're gonna
Surplus
invoke
or
the
deficit?
catch-off
Yeah.
phrase, then leave it
Government
out
work,
both.
close enough for government
Yeah.
work.
yeah, geez.
I don't know, anyway, we ultimately got added in. to the
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's good to have it formalized, yeah, in that way.
Yeah,
Good.
well, it's good to be able to text
Good
all
work.
of the.
Good work of
It's
the
good to be able to text
texting
all the
network.
senators and tell them,
I
hey,
was gonna say.
you need to put this in there.
But we somehow always seem to be left off in one way or
I
another.
don't know,
Left
well,
out.
I mean, previously they appropriated our same budget for 4 years in
Yeah.
a row. From 4 years back.
I guess we need to make some controversy. No, I'm just kidding.
I think what they
This is
want,
good,
I
actually.
think you change that word controversy to contribution, we wouldn't have a problem. Anyway, we did get inserted into the budget bill, so we were read into the records.
So what would happen just hypothetically if, let's say you never checked and then everything was finalized and we go and.
Well, if they don't appropriate anything, we can't legally spend any money.
Yeah, okay,
So,
that's what,
you know.
then we would be illegally spending money.
Yeah, according to the AG's lawyers that we dealt with in the past that were,
Yeah, okay.
assigned to us, they said you still have to have an appropriation for it to be legal, so.
Okay.
So we're not relying on that one section that says you can spend up to your revenues and fund balance.
So we are relying on it.
We are.
Well, we are, but we aren't, because we also said, you need to insert an appropriation section, so they did that also.
Oh, they did,
So-
okay.
So supposedly
okay.
that's been,
All right.
we've been inserted into the appropriation and into the funding source chapter also, so. We won't know until we see what's actually
The final product, right?
passed, yeah, so, but it was offered as an amendment.
I'm
as
sure
far
you'll
as
be
I know.
checking for it.
So, yeah, I'm checking.
Okay.
But,
We're covered both ways.
Yeah.
That's
to the
good.
governor, but, I guess I can ask my contact to, ask the governor when she gets it,
Okay.
We'll see if we're in there or not. Maybe she has to veto it because we're not in there.
I'm sure you have that page number written down somewhere.
Yeah.
Be
There'll
page
be
four,
other
page
reasons for her to
11,
veto,
page 75.
besides us.
I know you did, 75. Check that page.
Yeah, the funding sources, as long as we're in the
Because
funding
those
source, we're okay.
budget bills are
Yeah,
long.
oh, God.
Yes, all kinds of
Well,
words.
the one I was looking at was 85 pages that they got off of
Yeah.
the internet, but the one that it's gone up to like 162 pages. of
Someone's
what
always
they're-
adding something.
Yeah, and Chris,
Terrible.
I have to give it to Senator Dwayne just because he was dealing with, and he's like,
Sorry.
man, and someone asked Chris, how much longer you think it's gonna take to get done? He said, at the rate we're going, we might get done before Christmas.
I mean, they were still like midnight on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
It was like 11 p.m.,
They've been
midnight
up,
Sunday, they were
yeah,
still.
They've been up the whole time and, he takes dinner
I thought it was a
recess. and they come
rebroadcast, but
back
no, it
and-
was live.
And then he's got senators that ask questions and and joke around, and then they say, oh, but I got one more question. He's like, nope, sorry, so we've gone on, we're in recess. But, there's 2 rounds of questioning. Nope, I read it off at the beginning. There's 1 round, we're done. I don't envy the guy at all.
Well, that's why he's acting like that, because it's late and he
Yeah,
wants
he's
to
trying to
move.
get
He's
done,
trying to
but
move
they all
forward.
want 1 more question. He said, that's not fair to everybody else that we've already told to shut up, so. Anyway, it's the usual legislative process. But I don't envy him at all. I don't wanna be involved with any of that, any more than we have to. But we are in the budget.
Good.
Part of it, I know.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
Not,
Shall
not
we-
at this point, but the annual meeting registration email went out last night.
I saw that.
So they have a new, I can request scholarship for.
I think, Sean, you said you
2
wanted to go,
people,
right?
So who wants to go?
Oh, I haven't,
It's
made a decision on
it's
that yet.
October 26th to
Yeah.
29
Well, just request,
in Chicago.
just
so I can make a
request for me
request.
at least,
Okay.
and then
Anybody
at
else?
least we get something approved, and if anyone else
I
wants to
can
go, I
make
can
a
always
request
transfer.
and you don't have to go if you don't go, it's
To be a
okay.
placeholder.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, if that's. the
Put one
case,
in for
yeah.
me.
They want me to put in 3?
just, it's 8.8 million, the
I
net
gave,
increase.
I gave Tom a really hard time last time when he said, well, you only have 1. I said, they've announced that they would allow two now, so.
Oh, they did.
I'll put in 3 and ask them to approve it just in case 1 doesn't go. So,
I think historically they've always allowed 2, but we've always requested more.
we've always requested 2, but they always just said they allowed 1.
Well, yeah, okay, they allowed 1, we always requested 2, and they always
Yeah,
approved 2.
yeah. So. But I can put in the request if you want.
Yeah, I don't see where
Yeah.
that can hurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in Chicago, October 26th to 29. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, can I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting, and there's nothing else to discuss?
So moved.
Okay, and
Second.
second by Sean.
Okay.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Dolly.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Francis.
You guys want some
Have a great
snacks?
week. Bye.
You want
Bye.
snacks, you have to come get it.